want to share my experience with a step that a lot of people talk about in recovery in 12-step groups. And what that step is step 4. And I'll tell you something. All the stuff that you hear about step 4, about 95% of it is untrue. It is. It's untrue. And I mean all the daunting, the hard stuff. It's a little bit emotional. It can be overwhelming as hell. All those things. But this stuff that people talk about, how difficult it is. And I know probably it is difficult for some people, but I don't think it's that difficult for a lot of us. And when I went into 12-step groups to start my recovery, that's all I heard about for the first little while. There's a whole bunch of us hung around together and we talked about step 4, and people would mention step 4 and they'd talk about how difficult it was and how hard it was, and I had to stop because the emotions are too overwhelming, all this sort of stuff. And then they came out with all these new ones, all those lists, you know, the new stuff they have nowadays, and they confused it more. Joe and Charlie came out with some inventory lists and some sheets and all this kind of stuff, and it was, man, oh man, people confused the hell out of me. They really did. They confused the hell out of me. They made me afraid, and I said to myself, I'm not doing this step 4 business. I'll just, you know, stay on 1, 2, and 3 and hope for the best. And one day I was sitting in a meeting after the meeting, and this guy had, you know, tons of sobriety, and he said, Terry, how you making out? And I said, I'm making out pretty good. And he says, have you done your step 4 again? I said, oh, here we go again. Somebody else preaching the holier and thou of 12 steps, and you got to do your step 4. And I said, no. And he says, why? And I said, I don't know where to start. And you know what he told me to do? It blew me away. It was something really simple. He said, Terry, just start where you are today. Write down who you resent, why you resent them, what's the outcome. Just start there. Start with what you have in your memory today. You don't have to go back 50 years, or you don't have to go back 25 years when you're a child and your mom poked you in the ear with a spoon or something, or the local, you know, teacher yelled at you. You don't have to go back to you're a little toddler till you can barely remember things. He says, just go back, you know, today or the last week, things that are stuck in your head that you resent. And I looked at him and said, that is a good idea. Talking about keeping it simple. So that's what I did. So that very day, I jumped in my car after that meeting, and I motored on down to the waterfront in Whitby, Ontario, and I sat there and I pulled the book out, the big book, and I looked at it, and it had the columns. I did the columns. You know, in those days, we didn't talk much about a 4th column. It was back in the late 80s. We talked more about the first 3 columns, who you resented, why you resented them, and what was the outcome. So I went and I proceeded to do that. But there's one thing that happened to me that was totally overwhelming. It was this wave of emotion that came out. It was very liberating, to be honest with you. All this stuff that I already knew came out on paper like magic. All that hesitation, all that fear, all that hype that people talked about, it was not at all like that. Once I put pen to paper, it just flowed like magic. It just flowed like magic out. I always say it took me 2 years to get the courage to do a step 4, and it took me 2 hours to complete my first one. And I'll tell you something, a step 4 does not have to be perfect. It doesn't, because you can do one a month if you want, or 1 a year, whatever you see fit. A step 4 can be done multiple times. So the first time that you do it, it doesn't have to be a 25-page story of your life. It could be something very, very, very short, like mine was. Mine was about 3 pages, and that was it. It was the stuff that I was holding on to right now. And as I was writing it down, I saw a pattern start to form. And I saw that pattern within my writing. I really did. It was unbelievable. You know, who you resent, why you resent them, and what it affected, those 3 columns. It blew me away. It blew me away, because I could start even seeing the columns. but it was one of the first steps. It was one of the first action steps that I actually did, got off my butt and did, that started to help me sort out the nonsense that was in my head and in my emotions and my behaviors, things that I did that I wasn't proud of, and there was a lot of that, but it helped me sort it out. It really did. It's like they say, it's like doing an inventory. We keep the good and we get rid of the bad. It's like that. It really is. And that's what my sort of spin and my relation to the step 4. I think it's a great step. I think it's a step that really helps us sort ourselves out. We see on paper for ourselves that we're not, well, for lesser words, we're not as crazy as we think. And when I finished that step 4, the energies that I felt to do a step 5 was overwhelming. It was overwhelming, but that's not what this video is about. It's about my step 4. So what I want to tell you about is that you need to do it if you want to. Oh yeah, one thing I want to say, since I did a step 4, I've never relapsed. I've never relapsed after I did my step 4, believe it or not. Before that, I ended up in jail on relapses. I was relapsing all over the place. But when I did a step 4, for some reason, it started helping me develop a foundation for my sobriety. And I just, I never thought of that until years after. But I used to say to myself, I haven't drank in a long time. But it definitely was after I did a step 4. It really was. It gave me a clear runway to get sober. And one last thing I want to point out before I end this video is this. A step 4, as daunting as it is, and it's hard to do for some people, a little harder for other people, all that kind of stuff. We're all on the different levels of hardness, for lesser words, when people do it. And I'm not downplaying it. Some people do it easy. Some people have difficulties doing it, and I get it. Because a lot of us have had crummy childhoods, we've had crummy lives. I get it. But there's one thing I want to point out that a lot of people miss. A step 4 is just for your eyes. It's not for everybody else's. No one says you have to show anybody. No one says you have to do a step 5. Nobody. A step 4 and everything you're writing down is for you. It's for you. It's for somebody else, the third person, when you do the step 5, you, God, and another person. That's the way I did it, the step 5. But the step 4 is for your eyes only. And that's what you have to remember. No one's going to see that. Nobody. And after you're done with that step 4 and you do a step 5, I'll tell you what to do with it. Don't throw it away. Make sure you keep that step 4, okay? Make sure you keep it, because there's a really important part in that step 4 that you'll need to do a step 8. Oh, I'm just identifying what I do. This is my experience, strength, and hope with the 12-step program. It's really windy out today, isn't it? If you want to get involved in the conversation, you want more videos like this, subscribe, leave a comment, okay? This is about awareness. This is about making sobriety cool again, okay? I don't even know why I said that. Okay, God bless. I'm Terry G. This is an alcohol-free life, okay? Ciao for now.